see if my internet will catch up with me. So, hello everyone. How you doing? Happy new moon in Aqua. That is why we're here. By a twist of luck and fate, I guess, I have off tonight. We're talking about this. New moon in Aqua. Nothing super challenging going on. Definitely have a lot of harmonious energy in here, but we're gonna break it down, because even though obviously we have this gorgeous stellium in Aqua, Mars is the loudest person in the room, affecting the most different placements, planets, luminaries, whatever you want to call them. Mars is still going to be retrograding through most of February. Jupiter is going to go direct soon. Jupiter is going direct, I believe, this week. Yeah. Hey, Nicole. How you doing? Also, happy Lunar New Year. It is officially the year of the wood snake. So shout out to all the snake years. Let's get into this energy. Okay. This is the first time that the sun and moon have met in Aquarius with Pluto. Now, Pluto being in Aqua, all the fixed signs, but Aqua is going to go through the biggest transformative experiences with it being in their sign. Anybody who has significant placements in Aqua is going to feel it. They're going to feel it in whatever house it rules for them. And Leo is going to have Pluto opposite their sign for the next 20 years. And the transformations that Leo are going to go through is going to be much darker than, let's just say, the transformations that Aquarius is going through because of the opposition. There's a lot of integrations taking place, right? Hey, Kristen, thanks. There's a lot of integrations taking place whenever we have oppositions. When something moves through in conjunction, right? If you're in Aquarius or you have strong or significant Aquarius placements, right? Aqua moon, things like that. Hey, Tanya. Those conjunctions are powerful, and they're not necessarily bad. They're just key milestone moments where there was life before the transit and life after the transit, where when you have opposition in a sign, right, where Pluto is opposite Leo, it forces an intense, right? Pluto is intense. It forces an intense integration of deep reserves of power, and it brings it out through opposition, right? It brings it out through resistance. It brings it out through trials. It brings it out through tests. It brings it out through adversity, right? It brings it out through conditions that are not necessarily the easiest to move through. Hey, Sandy. Hey, Kelly. How you doing? So with this new moon taking place in Aquarius, the other fire and air, the other air signs and the fire signs are probably going to feel the greatest blessings with this transit. Water and earth signs are going to be a little bit different, because it's either going to be in square, or it's going to be in semi-square, or it's going to be in opposition, or it's going to be in sesquiquadrate. Like, it's going to be a little more difficult for the feminine signs, right? Earth and water. For everybody else, right, the masculine signs, air and fire, there's a lot of great benefit. Okay, there's a lot of great benefit. I think with this new moon in Aqua, depending on where, you know, these things fall in your personal charts, I feel like there's going to be a lot of symbols and revelations that coincide with those symbols. The synchronicities with the sign of Aquarius always speak really loudly. And if you have strong Aquarian placements, then you know the syncs are real. The syncs are real. And sometimes it's kind of hard to decipher through them all, especially because, you know, the only real challenges that this chart faces are these semi-squares going to and from Pisces, which is where we have this other collaboration of energy going on between Saturn, Venus, and Neptune, and the North Node, right? Because the nodes transited, so they're no longer in Libra and Aries. They are in Pisces and Virgo. I think the biggest difficulty will be through deciphering the symbols on a very deep psychic level, especially in the domain of love and money. I think Pisces and Neptune has this highly romantic feel, and Saturn solidifies. Saturn sets things in stone. So we have this highly romantic energy that really wants to manifest and ground itself in. And the challenge is being able to follow the signs and the symbols, right? The challenge is being able to read the signs and the symbols to help you get there. Because Mars, right, having this conversation with Mars in Cancer is letting, it's like letting certain emotions die that just refuse to die, right? Certain feelings. And maybe you guys can vouch for this, since Mars has been retrograde for quite a while already, that there are certain things we used to feel that we no longer feel, right? There are certain things that would have had us very emotionally reactive that we are not reacting to in the same way. Not that we aren't emotional, but that we're not reacting to it in the same way. You know, it's like being deeply in love with someone and then not being in love with them at all, to the point that it might even be the opposite, right? Where there's some kind of loathing or resentment, you know, bitterness, right? The emotions that used to be there are being cut, right, with Mars. And it's still retrograding. So it's almost like this needing to go back and revisit certain things and asking ourselves, what was it that I didn't see or receive at the time that ultimately got me to the clarity that I'm at now, right? What was so highly romanticized then and attractive to me then, whether it was what attracted you to a certain friendship or what attracted you to a certain job or what attracted you to a certain partner, right? What was it that attracted me to this situation then that I do not find attractive now? And what do I find attractive now if that's not it, right? What do I find attractive now? Because there's certain things that, and I pulled some Symbolon cards to clarify some of these energies, use of symbols, right? I thought it was fitting. We've reached a point where we really don't give a fuck what other people think, okay? Of who we are, the choices that we're making, right? What is good for us, what is not good for us. Like, other people's opinions can kind of fucking eat dirt. I think that doubles down with Pluto and Aquarius, right? This death of the collective vibration, where we allowed our sovereignty to be tainted with the opinions or what acceptable practices of society or other people in our communities, our families, right? Our closer circles. Certain things are getting laid to rest. And there's this real pull towards loving your life, right? Loving your life and everything and everyone in it. If you don't love them being in your life, the emotional cut is strong, right? The desire to emotionally cut it out is strong. The I don't give a fuck anymore is strong. And I think that that's because Mars in Cancer, going through this retrograde period, is challenging Chiron. You know, right now it's retrograding. It's moving back into a perfect square, right? An exact square with Chiron. It's 2119 right now, but it's still continuing to retrograde and will continue to retrograde back into an exact square with Chiron. And Chiron is this inability to forgive the self for the sins that we've committed against the self. Not necessarily other people, but between us and us, right? Because the Symbolon card that came out for Chiron was the confessional, but it came out in the reverse. So it's like, forgive me for I have sinned. And it's like, but I'm not sorry I didn't sin. You know what I mean? I was learning things. I was healing through things. I was moving through this mission to self-understand and self-accept and self-love. And these actions that I took got me where I am now. And I can't really say I'm sorry for what I chose if what I chose taught me a very valuable, priceless lesson, right? Chiron is the teacher. It was a priceless lesson that I needed in order to heal. And now that the healing has taken place, the emotions are getting cut off, right? The emotions are getting cut off. I've learned it now. And I don't care anymore. It served its purpose, right? It served its purpose. Whatever the relationship dynamic was, whatever the situation was, served its purpose. And I'm not sorry for making the choices that I made. I will never be sorry for the choices that I've made. I will always be grateful for the lessons that I've taken from it. And that's the big thing, you know? That's the big thing. Uranus in Taurus is in harmony with Mars and Neptune, Venus, Saturn in sextiles, right? As they're trining each other, they have a minor grand trine going on between them. And there's serious loss, you know, and this is a very accurate card for the energy with Uranus and Taurus. It feels like a funeral, right? The loss of the life we knew or the people we knew or the possessions we once had, right? There's this grieving, right? There's this grieving of life that no longer exists because we had to learn certain things. And now that the lesson is learned, it's no longer required to persist inside that lesson. The lesson was learned. With it, there's this going back into the shell. That was the card that came out for the Aquarian new moon energy with Pluto and Mercury. It's going back into the shell, but it's in trine with Jupiter. And Jupiter got this beautiful Empress energy type card. And she's looking in the mirror and reflecting on how beautiful she is, right? Toe in the water, right? This clean kind of energy, this healing energy. It reminds you of the Star card, right? Where she has one foot in the river or the lake or whatever you want to call that body of water in the Star card. There's this, I'm retreating back into myself. I'm retreating back into myself and acknowledging how beautiful I am inside this space. I'm safe inside this space where I am myself and I am my most beautiful. That is where I am safe. And so collectively, there's this kind of retreat, or maybe a better word is surrender. There's this kind of surrender to the beauty of the self and what it means to forgive the self, to understand the self, and not hold our past ignorance against us because we were literally coming into a state of wisdom. I think that we are unaware of the fact, because, you know, we're talking about Piscean energy, and this is the card that came out for the Piscean energy: Saturn, Venus, Neptune, North Node, in Pisces. It looks like the Fool card, right? Where we've humbled arrogance, because you could see the king or the emperor is inside the satchel, right, that he's flung over his shoulder. And it's almost like a puppet. It's almost like this humbling of the arrogant individuals in our lives, the tyrannical or controlling people who make decisions for us directly or indirectly with their actions, right? People who force our hand with their behavior or their choices, right? Well, if the king or the emperor declares it, that affects my life. And now it's over our shoulder like a prop, almost so that the story can be retold in a very almost Shakespearean kind of way, you know, in order to teach others or give a certain message out to others, right? Lessons learned. It's like learning from the poetry of experience and allowing that poetry to reach other people, to help heal other people. You know, it's about figuring out what your lane is in life and in lesson, and really coming to terms with the fact that you are better for all of the quote unquote poor choices that you've made. Because poor is actually a very inaccurate word. It wasn't poor at all. It was a perfect choice that you made, considering the healing that you were going through. You just didn't know what it was at the time. Now you do, though, right? Hey, Risa. Now you know. I think that we're taking the wisdom that we've learned and kind of purging the inner child by fire, almost letting it burn up in the flames, because the inner child carries suppressed wounds that affected our decision making and our choices. You know, the things that we think about are the things that we become. And I think that the wounded facets of the self that were buried really deep in there are being purged out. I think they're being purged out to where they are no longer affecting the manifestations of our lives. And we're in this kind of transition period where we're still letting go of the wounded self. We're still aware of the fact that we were wounded in ways that we didn't necessarily realize prior to now. Maybe there was a time when we thought we were doing great. You know, we were perfect. Everything was great. And then the misalignments revealed themselves over time. And it's like, wow, like I manifested this bullshit. These fucking people, you know what I mean? Like, and I was quote unquote wrong. But did you grow though? You know, did you grow though? And I think if the answer is yes, then you're in high alignment with your journey. You know, being in high alignment doesn't mean that life is perfect. Being in high alignment is being receptive to divinity and what divinity brings for you to see and understand, that you could be self-aware and self-recognize and find the beauty and the value of yourself. You know, if I go back just 5 years ago, I thought I had everything I wanted. I had my divine counterpart. I was living with him. We were having this life, blah, blah, blah. And I was miserable. Miserable. I didn't know my value. I didn't know my beauty. I was letting it be degraded. You know what I mean? And fast forward 5 years later, and I found such peace in myself, you know, and there's different facets of these relationships that we've encountered over the course of, you know, Pluto and Capricorn, no matter what the dynamic is, that we're finally letting go of it. We're finally letting go of it, not just letting go of it, but what drew us to it to begin with, where our mind was at, right? Mercury is coming in with this Plutonian transit and the new moon. They're all within 10 degrees orb of each other. Mercury is conjunct Pluto within 15 astrological minutes. The mind and the way we perceive and the way we think and the way we communicate is very different. And it's bringing a lot of healing. And the sign of Aquarius is bringing forth a lot of clarity. It's allowing people to start seeing and receiving synchronicities in a very blaring way when they may have been completely ignorant and oblivious to them before. The synchronicities are going to help you like stepping stones. If you can pay attention to your synchronicities and look them up, like if you get the same symbol twice or 3 times in a day, and it's not every day that you would see it, or even every week or every month, like you should look it up. You should look it up. I had a symbol of like stitching and sewing cross my path three different ways. 3 very different ways and very different, receiving of the syncs. And it was sewing things to mend or sewing things together in order to make it perfect. It was the way stitches work and how stitching things brings things together in such a way that it would not break again. Right. And that was the synchronicity that I was receiving. And I was like, well, what was I thinking about when those synchronicities came through? And I was thinking about the same thing all 3 times, so I was like, okay, Spirit, I get it. I was literally thinking about this particular subject matter. And that is when the synchronicity crossed my path. All right, that message received, like, thank you, so pay attention to your signs and synchronicities moving forward with this new moon. Know that even through difficult situations, there's a whole lot of harmony and benefit coming from it all. And even the burned tree leaves nutrients behind for the seeds that survived. So if you've got these new seeds of perspective, even if the whole damn tree burned down, you can regrow from those new perspectives that you've gained. And you're going to come back more beautiful and more strong than you've ever been, thriving off of the nutrition of your old experiences, right? Those experiences that nurtured you into the healed version that you are now, so that you can continue your path here. And I think that's the big takeaway. This is not about what other people think, or if other people are better than you or in a better position in life than you or living a different path than you. It's not about what they think. It's not about doing what is acceptable. It's about doing what you love. It's about being in the energetic state that you love being in. Like if you love being sad and depressed, great. That's your vibe. You love being sad. You want to continue choosing things that make you sad. More power to you. If you love your peace and value respect, then all of the things in alignment with bringing you peace and showing you respect are what you're going to keep around. And everything else can fucking kick it. It's understanding what it is that you want on your particular path and following that path through. There's a lot of splitting off with Mars and Cancer, a lot of splitting off, and it's all harmonious, right? The only square, the challenge to Chiron is knowing that when you make these cuts, these emotional cuts where you no longer feel like you did for certain people or certain situations, that you are not a victim and you do not need to apologize for what you're choosing. You do not need to apologize for cutting those emotions off. You do not need to apologize for going back into your shell where you feel safe and beautiful in who you are. There is no need to expose yourself and your vulnerabilities right now. That's not what's important. You've already exposed your vulnerabilities. You've already exposed your quote unquote weaknesses. and in exposing them to others to see and use or manipulate or take advantage of, you saw it yourself. Like the whole time that we were quote unquote exposed, it was really to help us see ourselves. And now that you've seen it, you're like, okay, let me go within. Let me value who I am. Let me gain my strength here in who I am. And not give a fuck what anybody thinks about it. You know? So new moon in Aqua. For every loss you take, there's two beautiful aspects to gain. One of them will probably come in right away. And the other one is going to show up in perfect divine time. And it will absolutely be everything you wanted. When you make these high aligned choices, when you allow the divine to guide you through this experience and be self-aware, things that fall apart are only truly falling into place. And if you can let time do what it does, if you can let the divine do what it does, align things, and trust that the most beautiful facets of life, what you romanticize about inside your mind, that beautiful life, that's what's manifesting in and becoming solid for you from the loss, I think it'll help you get through the transits a lot easier. Know that you are not lost. You might not know where you are, but you're not lost. You are not lost. Matter of fact, you are within the divine's sights. You are within the divine's sights. And the divine's holding your hand, whether you realize it or not, and walking with you on this path. Every step in the right direction. Don't hold your old version against you. It was required for your new version. You know, it would be the equivalent of getting mad because, you know, now you're on, you know, update version 5.6 and you're sitting there pissed off at version 1.2 or 4.4 and you're like, I hate that version. But if you didn't go through that version, you wouldn't have been able to get to the next version that got you to the next version. You know, so you can't hate who you were if it helped you get to where you are. You could just look forward to being in the newest version of you and what it reveals as far as room to improve so that you can dive into your newest version from there. Right? Evolution at its finest. So that is the new moon in Aqua. I am going to do another live and we're going to pull some cards. So I will see you all in just a bit. Take care, guys.